shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great.
Hello and welcome back to Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast. My name is Dr. Noah DeCoyer and I am your co-host. Today I'm super excited to have our guest, Guillermo Ruiz. Guillermo is a fourth-year naturopathic medical student at Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine. His aim is to use his research to advance naturopathic medicine using an evidence-based approach and focuses on finding evolutionary connections between our modern and traditional healthcare systems. Guillermo is currently a research assistant at SCNM, an associate researcher at Arizona State University Biodesign Institute, where he focuses on botanical medicine research. His hobbies include researching, learning, practicing, and teaching the benefits of adhering to an appropriate evolutionary diet. His website is www.3030strong.com. That's www.3030strong.com. Guillermo, I believe you're the first student that I've interviewed for our podcast.
Oh, well, that's quite an honor, actually.
And our mutual friend Allison suggested I have you on, so I took her advice, and here you are.
Oh, hopefully your podcast prestige doesn't drop too far with my interview.
I don't think one bit. You know what? So let's start where I start every interview. How about a little backstory? People are always interested where people come from.
Well, so I like to call it, it's like my hero story, and evolutionarily, I like to believe that we gotta have a story to make us a full human being, a full member of society. And within this hero story, there has to be some failure, and there has to be some like shaking off and just standing up and starting over. My journey through health, started when I was working at an emergency department for children, and I wanted to do the whole evidence-based medicine, and I wanted to go the allopathic route. And then my girlfriend's mom was diagnosed with jejunal cancer, pretty extreme type of cancer, because by the time it's diagnosed, the first symptom is usually a complete obstruction of your small intestine. So imagine having that lumen completely covered with cancer. By the time it was diagnosed, the cancer had spread everywhere. So, trying to apply this evidence-based model, I went on PubMed and started researching about this type of cancer. And it turns out that this type of cancer has a really strong correlation and, even to causality to having a gluten allergy. So I print out all these case studies and all these case reports because it's such a rare type of cancer. There hasn't been any meta-analysis on this. She takes it to the surgeon, and the surgeon throws him away and says, it's not nothing that you did. It's not your fault. Now that's a great message. The problem is that there is DNA walking around this earth that shares the same predisposition to this type of cancer. When I'm talking about her, her daughters, her son, family members, that maybe this information that could be validated could save lives. So I go back to work, and I started thinking about, I want to be in a profession that, has the ability to identify obstacles to cure, not just shut down symptoms. I want to look at diet and exercise and maybe supplementation and have a hierarchy and an order on the implementation of this healthcare. So maybe start with easy modifiable habits, and as it progresses, maybe you might need a pharmaceutical, maybe you might need a surgery. And I want to be able to try to use all of these tools, not just a prescription pad. And sure enough, listening to podcasts and reading blogs, I learned about naturopathic medicine. So I like to say that naturopathy found me, not the other way around, because this is the way we used to perform healthcare back in the day. So now my aim is to try to bring all of these concepts of traditional medicine to the forefront and try to create a more sophisticated, integrated healthcare system where we rely on both traditional and modern science, or findings in order to advance the health of populations.
Guillermo, for our audience, can you give
Uh-huh.
us or explain to us, in a nutshell, the difference between a typical MD and a naturopathic doctor?
Okay, so we are both trained in a system that is we're just trying to learn everything there is to know about the human body in 4 years. So you have to be pretty crazy to immerse yourself in something like this. On top of that, you have to learn your anatomy and your physiology, and then you have to start learning about general diagnosis. And that's where things start to divert a little bit. When the allopathic model, there is very little focus on nutrition. There is little focus in the other modalities, such as physical medicine, such as, I learned about acupuncture, I've learned about botanical medicine, I've learned about nutrition, and I've learned about pharmacology. So, in my system of medicine, if a person comes in with a problem that can be fixed with a lower level entry uh, problem, for example, let's say you have a patient that comes in that has some hormonal imbalance, low testosterone, for example. Well, let's say they've been paleo for the past 3 years and they got 90% better, but they are not to where they need to be. I run their labs and I find that maybe it's a 40-year-old with a free testosterone of 400. I might not jump into HRT, hormone replacement therapy, right away. I might try to do something with botanicals. I might try to do something with maybe ketogenic diet or maybe intermittent fasting and try to keep them at that level for as long as I can so I don't have to jump into the HRT right away. On the other hand, if I have a patient with type 2 diabetes that has, blood sugars of 400, I'm not going to start by using botanicals in order to get them to a regular level. I might use metformin. But then, as the patient adheres to a better diet, as they start having better sleep, maybe I can modify that and maybe then step back to botanicals and then maybe then take them completely out of their medication. I don't have to jump from 0 to 100 with every one of my patients. And that's the freedom that I wanted to have and the type of scope of practice that I wanted when I wanted to become a doctor.
Much more holistic, and as you said, a much more systematic approach.
Yeah, and different. It's hard to create a rubric. It's hard to just open up, find your quest book in order to solve health. It allows me, on top of that, to spend more time with my patients. Um, Naturopathic medicine is not. It's not usually. There are some states that have some regulation when it comes to insurance, and you can bill insurance. But I'm trying to get away from that model. I don't like that fake economy of insurance where they dictate what you can prescribe, how much time you can be with your patient. Actually, by extracting myself from that fake economy, now I can charge my patients and spend the time they paid for, and really get deep into the understanding of what disease process they have, and actually create effective change.
I love all those answers. Now, I know, off air we chatted a little bit. I know you have a great passion for research, and you do a lot of research. How about some insight on some of the newest research that you're doing right now?
Well, right now it's after hours on it's MLK Day, and instead of uh, being at home watching TV, I'm actually at the ASU lab, and we're doing something really cool. So we know of all these different treatment options that we have within functional medicine, and one of the things that functional medicine has is on the spotlight right now with things like Lyme disease and cancer is ozone therapies.
Right.
So what we're doing right now is we're taking all of these different type of human cells and we are ozonating them at different parts per million, and we want to see what is the effect of those to killing the cells versus their counterparts, the same line of cell with cancers like immortal cells. We want to see if the amount of ozone needed to kill the cancer cells is lower than the amount of ozone that is needed to kill healthy cells. In order to have that therapeutic dose and be able to further dial in what is the right amount of ozone a person should be using. Now, we've been doing this with bacteria. We've been doing this with fungus. And next week, we're going to start doing it with viruses. So we're going to ozonate the viruses. We're going to see what the minimum dose, killing dose of ozone for viruses, bacteria, fungus. And then we're going to compare that to the amount needed to kill a healthy cell. And that way we can dial in this treatment. And so far, the results that we're getting are fantastic. Now, this is all in vitro, and in vitro might not translate to a human model, but this has not been done yet. And so we need to start somewhere. So, starting with this very simple, very important experiments is going to make our practices way safer.
That's great. And is ozone therapy being used now?
So it is being used. It is you have to go through an IRB review board because it's still considered a experimental treatment. But the problem is this: it's very easy to set up an IRB. You can get, a group of people, and they can start creating the IRB process, and you can register with the FDA. And then you can offer people to join your IRB, and they might not have any idea of what they're doing. So in order for us to be able to, as a profession, and as there's many people that have received tons of benefit from ozone. In order for us to be able to say this works or this doesn't, we need to go through all of the different levels of experimentation in order to make this practice safe. Because people are going to do it whether we do this experiments or not. And I would rather be safe and try to put the evidence behind it, and maybe we'll find out that the dose needed to kill cancer cells is higher than the dose needed to kill healthy cells. And maybe we can put a paper out there that prohibits the use of ozone. But guess what? This is what evidence-based medicine is. So far, the results are very, very good and very promising. Again, this is all in vitro. But we have to go through this movement. We have to go through this process in order to keep our patients safe. First, do no harm.
Excellent. I'm excited to see your further research on this. Any other research products that really interest you or excite you that you've done or are working on currently?
Well, I've literally been all over the world presenting one of my projects on bacterial resistance and how we can use botanicals in order to kill bacteria. Because the number one problem that we're going to have in the very near future is not cancer, it's not heart disease, it's our inability to use antibiotics to kill bacteria. We've had it really, really nice so far because we have very potent antibiotics. But if we continue to overuse these antibiotics, we're going to run out of the ability to kill simple staph. It morphs and it becomes MRSA. I'm pretty sure your listeners have heard of methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. And we need to find the next antibiotic that is going to be effective. Thankfully, nature has co-evolved, to fight the same pathogens that we're fighting. And I'm going to give you a very short example. One of my biggest focuses of research is on carnivorous plants. Now, carnivorous plants are very interesting because they accept vectors into them in order to survive. As in, they accept mosquitoes or they accept like lizards or small mammals in order to continue growing because they grow in very low nitrogen content soil. So they evolved to use these exogenous materials in order for them to survive. But when they're accepting these mosquitoes, when they're accepting these other little vectors, those vectors carry bacteria, they carry viruses. And I've never seen a plant get up and go to the doctor. So they have to evolve with these endogenous antimicrobials in order to defend themselves. So we've actually traced back the evolution of carnivorous plants, and we find a fork where the plant either became carnivorous or not. And the carnivorous plants, when you get the botanical extraction, you have antivirals and antimicrobials, and some of these antivirals have anti-cancer properties. So we've been trying to, run against the time right now because we're running out of time, trying to identify what is this substance within the plant, within thousands of different phytochemicals, that is the active ingredient in this plant, in order for us to have better antibiotics and, more importantly, try to get ahead of bacteria. Now, something that I can tell you right now is that something very interesting we've discovered is that different genus of plants create different types of microbials and antibacterial with different mechanisms of action. So if you, as a practitioner, want to create a synergistic blend of botanicals, a botanical that has a tincture that has different mechanisms of action, as long you don't have to go and go into a lab and test every single plant. You can make this a thought experiment, and if you use different types of plants, maybe you use a plant from the southwest and a plant from the northeast and a traditional Chinese plant, chances are that the ecosystems that they've evolved in are so different that they're going to have different mechanisms of action. So now you're attacking the bacteria in different ways, and it's harder for the bacteria to become resistant.
Wow, the first I've heard a lot about natural antimicrobials, as you can imagine, but this is the first I've heard using the example of carnivorous plants. Are there, and everybody's familiar with the I think it's the pitcher plant and the Venus flytrap. I mean, they're let alone them looking for higher nitrogen food like flies and things like that. The fact that they need I'm blown away. Now, are any of these botanicals available? Are there any that we might be aware of, or is this something that's not even hit the market yet?
So one of the plants that we've worked really closely with is a pitcher plant, Sarcenia purpurea. Okay, and it's just such a magnificent plant. Darwin said, of all the creatures in the world, carnivorous plants are the most wonderful plants in the world, because they are this mixture in between, almost a mammal but not really, and they have this need to eat, but at the same time they can't move, so they have to develop all these different evolutionary adaptations in order to to survive. So we can learn so much from evolution, and being able to do this research has opened my eyes into all of these different, imagine, we're just talking about plants. What about fungi, and what about traditional diets? And how did grandma figure out that she had to soak beans in order to cancel out the lectins, so her kids would grow up and be strong and survive? Imagine if we can gather all of this knowledge and adapt it and include it in modern medicine, how much more powerful would our treatments be?
Yeah. Well, we're going to have. You're right on. We have to, because amoxicillin and vancomycin and some of these strongest antibiotics just don't work anymore. They simply don't work.
And so let's talk a little bit about cancer. So what are we doing? Because cancer adapts. Cancer will find a way, because it's reproducing so fast. One random mutation happens, and that chemotherapy that you we're using doesn't work anymore. So what are we doing now? We're creating cocktails with different chemotherapies. So now we're including 2 or 3 different mechanisms of action in order to prevent that cancer cell from becoming resistant. What if we apply the same model to bacteria? What if instead of using just a beta-lactam that attacks the cell membrane, or a quinolone that is a gyrase inhibitor, what if we combine a beta-lactam and a quinolone within one tincture? Now, how long would the FDA take to approve something like that? Just think about it. But with the research that I'm doing, we're identifying the plants and we're identifying the mechanisms of action of these specific plants. And we can combine them, and they are not perfect. It gets really tricky with standardization of botanicals, but we can pinpoint the exact mechanism of action of this botanical. And we've already been doing botanical tinctures for thousands of years. I can go to a medicinary, get 2 or 3 different mechanisms of action with different plants, put it in a tincture bottle, and prescribe it to my patient tomorrow. I don't have to wait for clinical trials. I don't have to wait for funding. I can do this with simple petri dishes and time. That's all we have. And now, go look out. I know you're in the Northeast, and I'm here in the Southwest. You can look out your window and try to see how many different plants we have that we're not taking advantage of. And the cure for this problem of bacterial resistance is right in our backyards. We just need people to pay attention and try to help us, because unfortunately, these experiments are very exciting, but they're not very profitable.
Right. The interesting thing that I see is that there's shamans and medicine men and all sorts of whatever you want to call them for centuries that have been using these plants as effectively as medicine for as long as we were humans.
And this. So let's take that's such a cool segue into the next thing that I want to talk, because a lot of my research also focuses on not only what can we use these plants for, but also how can we make the use of these plants even more efficacious. How it's a lot of quality control. And what we found out is that we use a plant, Melissa officinalis, lemon balm, to treat viruses, and it has such a good history as an antiviral. So, by doing this research, we figure out that the way that the books teach how to extract it is not the most efficient extraction method. So we were using an ethanolic base, water and alcohol mix, and we were getting like 70% efficiency, per microliter of. You're talking about like 1,000 of a milliliter, microliter of tincture used, and then we went back and we started seeing, with different polarities, everywhere, anywhere from hexane all the way to water, what was the best way of extracting this herb for its antiviral use. So this traditional method works, and it was passed from generations to generation, and it reached me at my desk, and I was able to figure out that this plant was really good as an antiviral. But with the marriage of modern science, I was able to even further get more out of this plant, and it turns out that water is the best extraction method for Melissa officinalis. Simple water, a simple tea of Melissa is more powerful as an antiviral than doing a hydroethanolic extraction.
This is really fascinating. So essentially, to boil this down, you're taking the ancient science that humans have been using for millennia, and then applying the most updated science, the techniques that you learned through school and just making the best out of everything that you could, making the best of a good situation even better.
Optimizing. We're trying to
Optimizing.
optimize. So so then it gets really crazy because, for example, have you ever do you work with botanicals with your patients?
I'm familiar with many. Yeah, I mean, more nutrient supplementation, but I'm familiar. I'm familiar with essential oils and propolis and bee products and all that kind of jazz. So absolutely.
One of the ways that people try to ensure that their botanical tincture is effective, okay, is by standardization.
Right.
So they take this plant that has thousands of phytochemicals, thousands of plant-based chemicals, and they pick one of those uh, phytochemicals and they say, "Oh, you are the one that's active." And then they standardize the tincture according to that one thing within the whole plant. Now, it is a good effort, but do you really believe that the whole activity of the plant lies on one single molecule? Absolutely not. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. I think the perfect example of that is as turmeric or turmeric. I mean,
turmeric.
everybody standardizes the curcumin, but we know there's 1,000 other uh, beneficial chemicals in that herb that our body can use for a variety of different things.
So what we did is we took antimicrobials, antivirals, antifungals, and immune modulators like echinacea, and we sent them for spectrometry to standardize them and see how much of the PubMed published evidence was it was in each of these plants. So some of them had like 10% of whatever the compound was, and others had 5%, and other 3%. And then we tested with biological assays to actually see the activity in vitro. And it turns out that all of this standardization means nothing unless you have the right compound. The problem is that a lot of these compounds have never been named because how do it's thousands of compounds, and we have libraries with compounds. Oh, rosmarinic acid, that must be it. And that's a compound within the Lamiaceae family. Lamiaceae is all your mints, so lemon balm, lavender, mint, all of those stevia, all of those that family of plants, all of them have rosmarinic acid. So it's in high concentrations. So some dude that wasn't doing his due diligence said, it must be it. That must be the active compound. Let's standardize this herb to this. And it turns out that rosmarinic acid is not the active constituent. And we actually published this, and it's on plus one, and I can send you the link so you can see how wrong we have it, and how if we're standardizing to a single thing within the plant, we might be throwing away or getting rid of all of this plant material that could be better used by going back, looking at traditional medicine, seeing maybe we're not optimizing this in the right way. Maybe we should be extracting in a different way. Maybe we should be using it, instead of trying to figure out how to standardize it by a single compound, we should go back and see all of the different nuances. For example, is the plant being grown properly? Is the plant, does it have pesticides? Is it being extracted with the right amount of water to ethanol? Should we put glycerin in the tincture? Though that's to me is so much more important than focusing on one molecule within the thousands of molecules in a plant.
Fascinating. I could see your passion and why and the value of what you're doing. It's really I hope there's a lot more of you out there doing this, but I'm not sure there is.
Sadly, when we work with these plants, I've gone to the Society of Integrated Oncology. I presented in Boston. I presented in Miami earlier this year. I was in Spain and presented some of my work over there. And every time we present, we get this warm, everyone's so mind blown, and this is so amazing. and we've met with NIH and NCI, and they always tell us, whenever you find the one molecule that we could turn into a pharmaceutical, call us.
Of course.
And it just want to blow my brains because it's so sad that we have these tinctures that work. We can start using these botanicals and optimizing them and making awesome medicine out of this, this marriage between tradition and science. But unfortunately, it's not very profitable.
Well, it'll be profitable in the sense that you're going to get a lot of sick people well.
Well, hopefully, and that's what keeps me motivated. I've already lost a person because the healthcare system failed. So let's try to change the whole game and try to do whatever we can within our power in order to make this possible, in order to optimize our health.
So Guillermo, what's your long-term goal, and when are you officially finished and officially be deemed a naturopathic doctor? What are we looking at here?
So graduation is around 160 odd days away for me, and not that anyone is counting.
Right.
And then I got to take boards, and I think that within the naturopathic profession, it is so important for us to do a residency and be able to, when we are when we go to a conference or when we have to go visit a patient in the hospital, and they ask us about our training, we can say, yeah, I've done a residency. So I have applied to residencies. Hopefully, I can go learn under one of my mentors for the next 1 to 2 years, and then eventually either join the practice or start my own practice. But I think it's so important to have that parity with our allopathic allies.
I understand, and I agree with you. And with your research, long-term goals, what are some of your objectives there?
Well, so there's been a lot of talk at the school, to try to create, and there's 5 the sister naturopathic schools within the United States, and I truly believe that SCNM is at the forefront for benchtop research. We are at the forefront trying to push the boundaries and trying to bring everyone along in the functional medicine realm. And my dream within naturopathic medicine is to create a center for research at school. And this is what we're doing. We are trying to gather interest from people that might be listening to your podcast. I'm going to be 35 years old when I graduate, so I didn't go directly from my undergrad right into naturopathic medicine. I took a couple of years off. There's people that are older than me. There's people that are younger than me, and there's people and the common denominator is that we all want to help. So if there's anyone out there that is wanting to, maybe change professions, or maybe they are not satisfied with their role within the functional medicine or the paleo or the you name it community, all we have is time. And if you really want to become a doctor and that's been your dream, go for it. And so by positioning SCNM as the research central for botanical medicine, then maybe I can mentor people to have the fire and to have the enthusiasm and maybe the curiosity in order to continue advancing this, because there's thousands and thousands of plants out there, and we just need people to put in the time and try to figure out how to best use them.
Guillermo, how can our audience get in touch with you?
My website is a good start, 3030strong.com. I'm on all the social media with my same handle, 3030strong on Facebook, Twitter, on Instagram. I'm actually getting ready to release a podcast. So yeah, one of my mentors, Dr. Alan Christensen, I was telling him, I think that I would like to start a podcast. And he told me, so when do you plan to start it? And he said, yeah. I was like, well, after I graduate, and maybe a year after I graduate. And he asked me why, and I really didn't have an excuse. So he gave me a deadline, and he said, "You're going to start interviewing people, and you're going to have to ask people to come to your show, and you need to start a podcast because why are you waiting? The information needs to get out there." And it turns out that there's a lot of people within the paleo community that don't know people in the naturopathic community, and vice versa. So it blows my mind that I went to the Bulletproof conference and people didn't know about raw wolf. And it's just so crazy that all of these people have the same goals. So I want to be that sandbox that where I can bring all of these different biohacking or functional medicine or paleo or naturopathic or evolutionary medicine, and try to just introduce everyone to each other and maybe create collaborations and advance healthcare.
Well, you let us know when that podcast is out, and we'll help promote it. And if you need to pick our brains, please ask us for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well, we really appreciate having you on tonight. I love your work. I find it incredibly fascinating. I think you're right on track. Congratulations. I hope graduation goes really well, and thank you for being on today.
Oh, thank you for having me. And anytime you have any questions on botanicals or anything, don't feel free to reach out. And I might not be able to give clinical advice yet, but I have a pretty strong understanding, and I can guide you on how to best approach botanicals in order to help people heal.
Well, you're in trouble now. I have your cell phone and your email.
Hey, you got to start somewhere. So yeah, go ahead and bother me as much as you want.
All right, brother. Listen, have a great night. My name is Dr. Noah DeCoyer, your co-host, and you are listening to the Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast. If you like what you've heard today, please share this with your friends and encourage them to subscribe on iTunes. Leaving a review on iTunes would be the icing on the cake. Thank you. And subscribe to our weekly email at www.beyondyourwildestgenes.com. Thank you, and as my oldest son Hayden says, be awesome and never unawesome.